is one of the most important things regarding your exams, because getting more than 120 for an essay means that you have done really well. Getting 150 out of 150 for an essay is close to impossible unless you studied that essay in the morning of the exam. Okay, so the issues that you will face when you are faced with a question like an essay question. First important thing is, without knowledge, you can't do an essay question. Without knowledge, you can't do an essay question. So first most important thing is learning the theory. So you need to know the content before you apply it in an essay question. So if you don't know the content, can't help, you have to learn it. That is the first most important thing. So this is how you are going to write an essay answer if you know the content. Okay, so first important step is first knowing the content. If you know the content, then I can tell you how to write an essay. Okay, so let's say that you learned the content. Okay, now in the exam you will be faced with 6 essays like this: 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so during your study in the last 2 months itself, you would have decided which essays that I am going to take. You will most probably take unit 2 essays, unit 4, unit 5, and maybe unit 7 or 8. You will never choose a short note. Most people are like that. However, let's say you studied the essays and went. Now you know all 6 essays. How to decide which essay you want to choose to get the most marks? This is how you do. You take a look at each question, right? You are given 10 minutes reading time. No, read the question first. So in this example, describe the process and significance of mitosis. Okay, describe the characteristics of meristematic tissues, describe the primary growth that takes place in plants, compare the differences between shoot apex and root apex. All right, briefly describe the basic plan of the human lymphatic system, briefly describe the grouping of blood, describe the structure of the skull, describe the different types of chromosomal mutations in organisms. Write short notes on the following: inbreeding, ecological pyramids, and benefits of the Human Genome Project. Okay. So which essay do I choose? Okay. So let's take the first situation where you have prepared for a certain set of essays. You prepared for unit 2, you prepared for unit 4, you prepared for unit 5. So these are the 4 essays that you're going to choose. Okay. What if you studied everything? Then how do you choose the essay which will give you the most amount of marks? For this, you need to do something known as a quick mind map. When you take the processes and significance of mitosis, you have to quickly draw a map of what you are supposed to write. Let's take significance and process of mitosis. So quickly here you write, okay, mitosis is the nuclear division. So they are not expecting us to write about the interface. Okay. So anyways, whenever you write an essay, you should always need an introduction. So I will give a cell cycle definition. Then mitosis and nuclear division. So a nuclear division, they are not expecting cytokinesis now, because that is the division of a cell. So what is present in the nuclear division? Okay, the first phase you have the prophase, then you have the prometa, then you have the meta, then you have the ana, then you have the octavo, and then after that you have the cytokinesis, and then you will write about cytokinesis. Okay, so what will I write about the prometaphase? Prophase, prometaphase, metaphase, and anaphase. So do I have a diagram that reminds me of what's there in prophase? Yeah, it was something like this, and the nuclear envelope is there. The nucleolus is disappeared. You had the chromatin. This was there like that. The spindle was formed. Okay, prometaphase. The chromosomes are present. And then non-nuclear envelope. Then this was attached. Something like this. It was attached. Then metaphase, all were at the center. Anaphase was going away from each other. Then telophase, they are joined. Okay. Right. How long did I take for that? I took less than 2 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. We can anyway, I was trying to explain how to do it now, so that's why I drew it a little bit neater. When you're writing this map, it needs to be written fast, okay? So when you have this skeleton on the paper, okay, not on your writing script, on your paper, you get the essay paper now. Once you have that skeleton, it will guide you on what you need to write, such that when you're writing about prophase, if you remember a certain point about anaphase that you couldn't remember in the beginning, you can quickly write, okay, spindle shortness. I suddenly came, okay, spindle short. Then you continue writing your prophase, prometaphase. Then you remember a point about telophase. Suddenly it came. So at that point, you quickly write, okay, nucleoli reappears. Okay, and then you continue writing the essay. So when you keep writing this essay, following this skeleton, it will be much easier. Why? When I'm asking you to write an essay on mitosis, you might be, troubled. Okay, where do I start? Where do I stop? But once you have this skeleton, it will be so much helpful, because once you have the prophase, all you need to think about is prophase. So then you write what you remember about prophase. Then you write what happens in prometaphase, then metaphase, anaphase, telophase. You have broken down a large essay topic into few structured essay like questions. Structured essay questions is pretty easy, compared to essays. So once you have broken down an essay into structured essay like questions, it will be much easier to do. So then see what else is missing? Significance. Okay, significance. There were 4 significances, no? 4 significances. Okay. So then keep writing. And then once you come to significance, you write the 3 significance and keep. Let's say you did not remember the 4th one. Then doesn't matter. Go to the next question. Take a new page, go to the next question. As you're doing it, suddenly from nowhere, significance comes. Then go back and complete that essay answer. Okay. Most important thing that you have to do is to create a map, a small skeleton. Don't take too much time. A skeleton should be done within 2 minutes, because you only get 30 minutes to write an essay. Within 2 minutes, a skeleton should be done. And once you are done with the skeleton, use the skeleton to be able to answer your essay. Okay. In that way, you will not miss any points. Okay. And there will be a nice order and flow to your essay. So this is what you do for significances of and process of mitosis. Let's take the next one. Characteristics of meristematic tissues. So then if you are given this question, what are you supposed to write about? First thing you will write about what is a tissue, maybe. You write about what is a tissue. Then you write about maybe the characteristics of meristematic cells. Then you talk about these meristematic cells. What are the different tissues the meristematics can form? What are the different types of meristems? Likewise, you're creating a skeleton for meristems. So when you do that, you can always follow the skeleton and write your answer, so that you will not miss any points. Okay. Same thing for the human lymphatic system. Same thing for the grouping of blood. Same thing for the structure. So whenever you're talking about processes, you can follow a nice skeleton like this. When you're remembering the structure, so here's structure of the skull. If you remember how to draw the structure of the skull, you draw the skull, and then using that structure, you write the essay. The best example for this would be structure of the human ear. If you get an essay on the structure of the human ear, you can draw the ear, use the information that is there in your diagram, to synthesize your essay. So you have 2 types of essays. Now you will get one thing, you will get for processes. Another thing is complete facts. Another thing would be a structure. So a structure, you draw a structure, describe that structure as you're writing the essay. In the case of processes, create a nice flow chart like this, or a concept map, and use the map to be able to answer your essay. Then if you have isolated facts that you need to remember, where is the facts? Let's go with ecological pyramids. Okay, I can't actually remember much about ecological pyramid. There is one about biomass, there is one about number, and there is one about energy. Right? So then these are the 3 pyramids that you have to talk about. And then under energy, there will be certain things that you need to write about. So once you have a concept map like this, you will be able to write it much easier and much quicker, in a better order and a better flow. Even if you remember something that is new, you can always include it into your skeleton, such that when you're writing the essay, you can then include that as well. So this is the method that I use when I do essays right now. So if you take my, I had to check whether I have a essay paper. I don't have it. If you take my essay papers, there is so much of text on the paper that I have to take home. Why? I create a concept map and then use the map to write a perfect AI-like answer. Because one thing, I know the content, and using the content, creating a map to create a nice flow, which will be easier for the examiner to mark and for you to remember the points as well. So can you tell me how many of you will actually do it in this manner? Usually are marks allocated for introduction in, okay, you know what, for introduction you don't get marks. Okay, I'm telling you what I did for my university. No, in there you have to give an introduction to make the essay stand out, but in this case you don't need to give an introduction. Okay, for example, for significances of mitosis, you don't need to write the definition of cell cycle, no, because they're talking about mitosis, which is nuclear division of mitosis. Then you can start from there itself. So I just mentioned it to show you a map. Okay, if you want, don't need to even write don't need to even write the introduction to save additional time. Okay, so how many of you all actually, just when you get the paper, start writing, and how many of you all actually plan a essay ahead and then write it using the plan? Anyone who does it like this, the one that I just showed? Yeah, very good. So then if you know the content, if you do it in this manner, it will be very simple. Okay, right. So then, right. So try this and see. Okay, try this and see. If it is working for you, then please continue it. If it is not working for you, or if you think it takes too much time, then do it in the way that you are used to. So then we have another question. For question 6, in part B, we already write about the shoot apex and root apex. And in question 6, part C, they ask for the differences. Should we include an introduction for the primary growth of root and shoot? No. In the differences between shoot apex and root apex, you only need the differences. I made the scheme, no? There are only 3 points for the 3 differences between shoot apex and root apex. That's all. Okay. You don't need to give an introduction again. Anyways, introduction is not necessary. You can stick to the point. So here, let's say I remove the introduction. Still what I said stands. You start with mitosis itself and write everything about this. Don't even need to include cytokinesis because mitosis is the nuclear division. Okay, and then the significance. So if you write it like this, you'll be able to remember more. You'll be able to stick to the point more also. Sometimes even in this method, you are confused if you should include a particular part. How do you identify where to stop the essay from? This is how I would. Now, for example, I just told you, cell cycle. I will remove it. No need cell cycle because mitosis is a nuclear division. They're asking me to describe mitosis, the nuclear division. So I don't need the cell cycle. I don't need the cytokinesis. Okay. So stick to the point. Once you have stuck to the point, go to the next essay. Go to the next essay. Write everything to the point. Go to the next essay. Write everything to the point. Go to the next essay. Write everything to the point. Then if you have time left, there are certain things you decided, right? Like for example, in this, the cell cycle definition and cytokinesis. And then maybe in meristematic tissues, let's say the definition of a tissue. Definition of a tissue. Then let's take with human lymphatic system. Absorption of fat. Absorption of fats through lymphatic system. So you might think it's important, no? Like how the fatty acids and how the triglyceride is broken down, how it comes into the lacteal, how the chylomicron is formed, how the chylomicron goes into the lacteal. You might think that is important. So then these are all things that you think maybe I should include. Okay, here rhesus system. No, rhesus system is important because it's grouping of blood, no? Structure of the skull. Describe the different types of chromosomal mutations. Over here, should I include examples? Should I include the Down syndrome? Should I include this one? What is it? Turner syndrome. All of those questions you will have. Now, these additional points, you don't include it in the first time you write the essay. In the first time you write the essay, now when you look at an essay itself, you will identify what is the core part which you must write, And then you will have certain doubts, okay, whether I should include that or not. If that part that you're planning to include is a very large paragraph, keep it aside, do the next essays, come back and include that paragraph. Okay, but if it is maybe just one or two sentences, you might as well write it. But if it is a large paragraph, keep it aside, do the other essays and come, because you're taking a gamble there. No? You are thinking, okay, what if they ask me that? What if this is there in the marking scheme? So you are gambling your chance of a little extra marks and spending time there, rather which you can use your time to another question and get at least the core points from them, right? You have to be smart with it. All right, so that is how you decide whether you have to include a certain point or not. But anyways, if you know the content well, as you look at the essay, you will know exactly what you need to include. So for example, if you did not know that the mitosis is actually nuclear division, some people will write about interphase also. Everything they know about mitosis. But that's wrong. You have to write about mitosis only, which is the nuclear division. Okay, that is how you decide what you are supposed to write, how much you're supposed to write. Okay, and always start an essay on a new page. Keep plenty of space when you're doing it. They will never, tell, okay, you have had enough papers. No, they will keep giving you papers the more you ask. All right. So don't be stingy with the paper. Always start a new topic or a new essay question on a new page. Okay. Shahida, did I answer your question? So once I've written the essay and come until maybe the last point or so, and I suddenly remember a point that would come for the first paragraph, can I write it at the end? Absolutely, you must write it at the end, right? Must means if you remember it in the beginning, you write it in the beginning. But at the last part, if you suddenly remembered and you think, you know what, I can't write it anymore because I already wrote the first paragraph, no problem at all. Write down there itself. For example, let's say you wrote everything about prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and suddenly you remembered a certain point in prophase, chromosomes get condensed, right? Then at the end, you can write, in addition, in prophase, chromosomes get condensed. They will take it as a mark, okay? Like that. Is it okay, Sarah? Right, then. Oh, all right. So this is how you're supposed to create a skeleton and have an idea and have a proper flow and order when you're answering an essay question. Okay. So again, most fundamental and important thing is to know the content. If you don't know about the structure of the skull, no matter what skeleton you draw, you have to take the skull out of your head and only write the exam. Okay. Right. Then when you're writing an essay, how do you get the specific points? How do you get marks? Sometimes you write it in your own words, but you don't get marks. To get rid of that issue, we'll say you have a question on mitosis itself, because I'm sure many of you all are familiar with that topic. We'll go to mitosis. Right. Here, chromatin fibers gets condensed by shortening and thickening and transformed into chromosomes. So over here, if you just write chromatin condense to form chromosome, you will not get a mark. Why? You have to write this part. Chromatin fibers, okay? Chromatin fibers condensed by shortening and thickening. So if you remember DNA packaging, we learned in unit 7 how exactly these chromatin fibers go around the histone beads, and how that histone beads go around, another loop, and how that forms loop domains, and how that forms the fourth level. So you see, it's not as simple as just saying it condenses, no? By shortening and thickening to form chromosomes. So you see, each word that they are using, in the resource book, there is a reason for it. If you can learn the reason for each word, you will be able to write it in the exam. Now, when you write this part, you will write it as chromatin fibers get condensed by shortening and thickening to form chromosomes. Why? Because you understood why they use the word shortening and thickening. So if you don't understand why they use the word shortening and thickening, you will not write it. Okay, so let's go another part. Then, here, let's say over here you write microtubules which are not attached to the kinetochore interact with each other. Okay, instead of saying interact with those from the opposite poles, you wrote interact with each other. Is that correct? Scientifically, it's wrong. Why? The non-kinetochore microtubules, they don't interact with each other, no? The non-kinetochore microtubules, they interact with the other non-kinetochore microtubules, which was formed by the centrosome on the other end. So you see, each word that they are using in the textbook, there is a scientific basis behind it. So if you know the basis as to why they are using each word, right? When you write it in the exam as an essay, you will include those words because you know the reason as to why those words are needed. Then one very easy example to explain that concept would be under plasmodesmata. Let's go to plasmodesmata. It's in this direction. Nice plasmodesmata. Plasmodesmata. Okay. Here, when you're asked to write the definition of plasmodesmata, if you write microscopic channels which runs through the plant cell walls, living connections between cytoplasm of adjoining cells, these are membrane line channels filled with cytoplasm. So you are writing what is a plasmodesmata? They are channels between adjacent plant cells. You write it like this. This is correct. Yes, it is correct. But can you be more specific? You have to be scientifically accurate. Why just channels? Now, how does that differentiate this plasmodesmata with other cell junctions that we learn? One thing we can write, it is microscopic. Why? Because it is very small. Microscopic channels. And what is another special thing? Inside this plasmodesmata, the plasma membrane actually extends through these junctions. Okay, microscopic, plasma membrane lined, okay. Then if plasma membrane is lining the channels, anything that is present inside the plasma membrane, we call it as a cytoplasm. Okay, cytoplasmic. What is present in the cytoplasm? Cytosol is a semi-fluid like substance, fluid field. And what is the purpose of this cell junction? To communicate between two adjacent plant cells. Fluid field channels between two adjacent. Why do you have to use the word adjacent? Adjacent because this plasmodesmata is between two cells which are close together, not only just neighboring, they have to be close together, one after the other. That's why you use the word adjacent. And what cells? You have to write plant cells. Now, if you write like this, you will get full marks. Why? What you have written over here, or what I have written over here is scientifically accurate and very specific. What they have given here is also scientifically accurate and very specific. I can also say living. Why? Because it's found inside the cytoplasm. Okay. Now, if you write like this, see, it's written in my own words, but the terminology is used. Why? Because I understand why each terminology needs to be used. So when you write it like this, you will get the mark. So what do? We just understand. Okay, plasmodesmata are just junctions between two cells and we move on with our life. But the marking examiners, there are so many people who do A-level biology. So many, more than 45,000 people do A-level biology. And more than 20,000 of them actually know what a plasmodesmata is. So can you give 20,000 people university entrances? No. Out of them, you need to even cut it down even further. Then to differentiate an excellent student from a student who is just basic, that's why they mark it this strictly, to ensure that they understood why each scientific terminology is used. So this is how you're supposed to learn essays. This is how you're supposed to learn from the resource book. Use this same technique to answer in both the structured essay and the essay. You can even get 150 out of 150 for the essays, 100 out of 100 for the structured essays. However, it's a Herculean task because it's very difficult. It's something that should have been done from the beginning. However, for whatever topics that you're going to study from now on, make sure that you study like this. Is that clear? Have I answered all your questions? So how to decide if the diagram should be drawn or not? For essays like skull, would they expect the diagram? If they ask you to describe the structure, 100% they are expecting a diagram. Okay. In my marking scheme, I didn't include the diagram of the skull. I have included 38 points. So I think in that essay, you don't need to, in my essay, you didn't draw, you don't need to draw the diagram, but in the A-level essay, surely when they ask you to describe the structure, you must draw a diagram. And if there is a diagram associated with that topic in the resource book, first write the essay and then draw the diagram associated with the topic just to be safe. But only do that once you have time. Okay. Even for the diagram, how much marks are they going to give? 6 marks out of 150. So 144 marks is from the written part. So written part is very important. And sir, if you know the short notes at least like 2 properly, isn't it safer to go for short notes over the full end question? Again, that depends. Again, that depends. Now, if you take, for example, question number 7, if you know A properly and you don't know B, okay? You know A properly, but you don't know B. On the other hand, in short notes, you know A, B properly and you don't know C. Then which one is better? Here you know 66% of the content. Here you only know 50% of the content. Which one will you get more marks? Surely the short notes. Did I answer your question, Shahida? Okay. So then that is all you need to know regarding how to study for essays, how to write an essay for exam, what are they expecting, and how to make sure that your essays come in a flow and you don't forget what you already know. Okay then. So if the diagram is not accurately as in the resource book, will we get marks? Okay. There is something known as proportions. All right. If you draw the mitochondria like this, if you draw the mitochondria like this, you will not get marks. Why? The cristae is not that short. The cristae extends much deeper inside, right? Much deeper inside. They don't care whether it is beautifully drawn or not. They care whether it is accurate or not, right? This way, even if it is uglily drawn, you will get mark, but it has to follow the correct proportion. So if you ask to draw the structure of a plasma membrane, if you draw like this, they won't give marks. Why? The phospholipid head is much shorter than the hydrocarbon tail. So then draw the same thing that they have given in the textbook. Or if you draw like this, also no marks. Okay. The proportions need to be accurate. That's what they are expecting in the A-level exam. Beauty, they don't care much. For skull, that's why I didn't include the diagram of the skull because I thought it's a little bit difficult to draw the skull, right? So I don't think they will expect a diagram, but just to be on the safe side, you need to learn how to draw the skull. Okay. But again, you need to know diagram maximum 6 to 10 marks. 140 marks come from the written point. So don't waste too much time on the diagram. Focus on the written part first, unless the diagram helps you to write the essay. In the case of year, the diagram will surely help you to write the essay. Okay. So as far as I observed, the short notes in past papers in scheme, mostly they summarize the content in resource book and include to the scheme of short notes. So we might not be able to write most of the things they expect, isn't it? Unless in ecological pyramids, for example, if you wrote whatever is there in the resource book, the schemes are 100% taken from the textbook. Every scheme in every past paper is 100% taken from the textbook. So if you wrote what is there in the textbook, you will get your marks. Okay. So if the diagram is not accurately as in the resource book, okay, that time in open circulation, if the heart is drawn in box shape, that is the diagram that they have given in the textbook, no? In box shape. So if you take the open circulation in the box shape, sorry, if you open circulation in the resource book, they have drawn it in a box shape here. This one. Okay, they will expect you to draw this. Nobody is expecting you to draw a grasshopper. Okay, they will expect you to draw this because this is where the concept is, how the open circulatory system works. All right. Or this is also not very difficult. So however, this is more important. This is more important. You draw this, and then once you have time, you can also draw this. So this grasshopper, you don't have to draw it like that even. You can draw the grasshopper like this. So this is also accepted, but it has to be clearly labeled, okay? Clearly labeled. This is also accepted. It looks nothing like this grasshopper, but all the important parts are there. You can see the flow of the hemolymph. You can see the ostia from the ostia where the blood is coming. You can see the hearts that are present. Those are the important parts. Okay, they do not expect you to be Leonardo da Vinci here. Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions? If not, we will round up for today. Last week, next